The 2010 Classic was a really special one for me in the fact that a lot of things had to transpire just right to have the opportunities that I did to be able to win that event. And, you know, to get the first boat draw from winning Angler of the Year, to have what happened before. You know, we were there at Lay Lake, and, you know, Boyd Duckett won the Classic, and I had a chance to win it. I mean, I was on the right pattern, the right fish, you know, throwing a lipless crankbait in Beeswax Creek, kind of fishing some of the grass that was there. And I had the fish at my fingertips to win that Classic. And so that was a dagger there. So going into 2010, I had a ton of confidence. You know, it's a lake that I know real well. It's a lake that fits my style. It's a time of the year that I feel like the patterns that I'm going to be strong with are really going to play out. You know, we go there and practice for the pre-practice period, and it snowed the first day. You know, I'm a guy from Michigan. That doesn't bother me. I got the right clothes, I got the right equipment. You know, we all get there. I mean, the hardcore guys, they're there at daylight. And when I got there at the ramp at the end of the day, my truck was the only one there. I mean, it was a wet, nasty, snowy, cold day, and I had an incredible day on the water. I mean, I got on a pattern and caught some of the biggest fish that I think that probably swim in that lake. It was just one of those days under those conditions that everything was biting. I was catching big spotted bass. I caught some, you know, giant largemouths, and I just had so much confidence, and I learned so much that first day that I just knew that if I could expand on what I was doing and really learn the areas that had the potential, that I would have a chance to win that Classic. Going into the first competition day, I'm the first boat out, and the back of that creek, I mean, we launched in the back of Beeswax Creek at the ramp right there. There's a bridge, you know, a couple hundred yards from the ramp, and I've got a ton of spectator boats with me, and I made a decision. I knew that there was a good creek channel there. I had side imaged the whole back of that. I knew where every stump was at, you know, every little hard spot, anything that would hold a bass under these cold winter conditions. And I turned left, went back there, and, you know, picked up my red-eye shad, and I didn't even really realize it, but it was a genius move, because all these spectator boats that wanted to follow me and all these fans that stood up on the bridge and watched, I got them to all stop at the bridge. And it basically effectively plugged the whole back of that creek off from the competition, because there was just a wall of spectators there. Nobody's going to go through it. I had a great first day. I was just basically yo-yoing a straight king half-ounce red-eye shad back there, and you know, had a real good start. And come to find out, you know, the other competitors that were doing well were all in somewhere in that creek. You know, it's a big creek, and one of them is a good friend of mine, Jeff Crete, the squirrel, and that's kind of where one of our rivalries. I mean, Jeff's a great friend of mine, and he's had some tough luck in events where we've both been there right at the top, and this Classic was going to come down to look like to be a showdown between Jeff and I. And he's a really good fisherman with a lipless crankbait. I mean, it's not just casting it out there and reeling it in, it's knowing how to fish that bait and to let it fall and let it drop and to actually work it, almost like you would a jig or something else like that. You know, in that cold water, there's no burning it and catching them. You know, I knew that I would have a chance if I could have some of these areas to myself, but the field had really kind of learned that the year before. I think there was quite a few fish caught in there. And so there was quite a lot of the competitors, and a lot of the guys, the top guys on the leaderboard, for the most part, were all fishing back there, and they were all fishing some type of lipless crankbait. You know, Faircloth was back there too, and Takahiro, which he's a really good shallow water, square bill, lipless crankbait guy. He came back in there late the first day, stayed for a little while and left, and when he saw how good that I'd caught him, he came up to me and said, "Hey, listen," he said, "you got a chance to win. I'm gonna stay away and you won't see me again." And that was one of the classiest things that anybody's ever done. And there is that code out there. There's those unwritten rules in our sport, and there's some guys that live by them, and there's some guys that don't. I mean, there's no rule that says he couldn't fish that area. I mean, he came back there the first day, even though it was later in the day. He had every right to start there the next morning. I'm going to be the last boat, but he didn't. The field, I mean, one or two guys came back in there, but for the most part, most everybody that saw me where I was fishing didn't infringe on the area that I'd fished, and that's a respect that it's hard to get. And that's the one thing in my career that is really important to me, is that I've always tried to be respectful of other anglers, and when you get, it's so hard to get yourself in position to win a big time event, especially the Classic. So to get that at that level, it doesn't just happen every day. So Takahiro did that. That's something that I'll never forget. I had so much confidence after that first day that this is one that I knew was going to be in my wheelhouse. It was just, hey, like, you take the time, be patient, focus, make repetitive casts, and you're going to get your bites. And eventually you're going to catch fish that you need. And I knew it would come down to that final day. Had to have a big day. And I started right out first thing in the morning. I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce Strike King red eye shad. I was throwing a gold sexy shad and a blackback gold, basically because there's enough stumps there that when I'd hit those, occasionally I'd hang up, and I had, I think, about 1.5 dozen of those baits between the two of them. And it just, in that color water, I knew that gold was going to be a real good color. And between the gold sexy shad and that, it took that many to make it through the tournament, because when I got hung on one of those stumps, I didn't want to go over there and disturb that stump and spook the bass off of it, because I knew, I mean, there was going to be a fish. There's not many stumps, and I knew there was going to be a fish on every one, so I would break them off. I was throwing it on 17-pound line, had the hooks changed to my KVD Mustad trebles, and it's a pretty darn good system to hook and land fish. Composite rod, the whole rod, reel, line, that's my system, that's my thing, still is to this day. And I started that final day, and my first fish was a 5-pounder. And it's just like, you know what? Today's gonna be my day. You just know. There's been times in my career when you just will it to happen, and it's going to. I mean, there's once that train gets rolling down the track, there's no stopping. That's how I felt. When I caught that big one right off the bat, my confidence level was already really high, but I mean, it was through the roof then. It was one of those days that was really enjoyable. I worked hard through the day, had a great time. My cameraman and I were, we're having a blast. That's the thing that a lot of people, a lot of fans don't realize. When you're fishing the Classic or you're fishing with the Bassmasters over the years, the production crew pretty much stays the same. When you're in that group, you're in that group. And, from the top all the way, from Mike McInnes, who produces the Bassmasters, and to Wes and all the camera guys that they have, they're your buddies, you hang out with them. So it was one of those special days. I've got the photos still. They're living it with you. When they're capturing it on film, they know what's happening too. It was one of those magical days, and to have the fans there on that bridge and lining the shore, and cheering you on when you catch one, and everybody's watching, and you feed on the energy of that crowd, and that day was, there was just no stopping. And it was one of those, in my mind, that it would have taken, Creed a miracle just to have one of those magical miracle days to beat me. And talking with the guys there as we're getting ready to weigh in, I knew that I had enough to win. I knew I had that day, and it's kind of cool because your family, your wife, they may hear some things and they hear you have a good day, but they really don't know. And so to kind of have it in your back pocket, that's like, hey, I'm going to pull into the Coliseum, in your mind that you've got it won, and all these people don't. It's a pretty cool feeling, and it's rare. In my career, you just don't get that opportunity very often, and for me, definitely, I'd won 2 Classics before, and both of them were just, you know, right down to the wire. I mean, Pittsburgh was the tightest and the lowest wind and weight in history, and so to have that turnaround and to do it in the way that I did, and to come back from the failure there and to win that event. And you know, your third Classic, now you're in real rare territory. And you know, I don't compete for the records or the money or the accolades. I love the competition. I love the guys I compete against. The best friends that I have are the people around the tournament trail, the staff. You know, you spend so much time on the road with them, it's like second family. So, you know, I want to be respected, but I also want to give respect. So that's why I've always not been in your face about things. You know, I'm not over the top about celebrating and stuff, but you know, you get those key moments where it means a lot, and you just have to let it go. It's real, and that's what the Classic is. There's nothing like it. Winning any event, you know, a Bassmaster tournament or an FLW or Major League Fishing, anything. It's all great and fine and dandy, but Classic is the Classic. It's the Super Bowl. And so to be on that stage and to be able to make it happen and to do it in the way that I did there, with the run that I've had, you know, in the Angler of the Year race to that point, you know, win an Angler of the Years and to win the Classic, it's hard to do. You can't plan that. Just everything has to line up. And for me, in 2010 in Birmingham, it did. If you want to learn more about what it's like out on the tournament trail, follow me on social media, go to my YouTube channel, or go to kevinvandam.com.